There is a moment near the end of Adventure Time where Finn lies down in a field of grass and asks, quietly, why everyone cannot just live in peace and let life pass like a butterfly on the breeze. The boy who used to shout his catchphrase off cliffs is asking, with a kind of soft exhaustion, why anyone has to fight at all. He is 16. He has lost an arm. He has lost a father he hoped would love him. He has lost a girlfriend he treated badly. He has met his mother and said goodbye on the same afternoon. He has killed a version of himself by accident. He has put down his sword without anyone telling him to. Tonight, across the next 2.5 hours, every step of that long, quiet journey will be walked through slowly, season by season, episode by episode, from the boy in the treehouse to the young man in the grass. Welcome to Jakku. Let us begin. The boy before the world got heavy. There is a version of Finn the human that exists only in the first stretch of the show, and it is easy to forget how completely it gets replaced by everything that comes after. He is 12 years old. His voice is high and bright, and a little squeaky in the way only a child's voice can be, the kind of voice that has not yet had to carry anything heavy. His hat sits on his head with a kind of permanent crookedness, and the little white tufts of hair pop out the sides like he has just rolled out of bed and onto a sword. He runs everywhere. He shouts when he is happy, and he shouts when he is fighting, and he shouts when he is greeting his best friend in the morning. He does not walk into rooms. He launches into them. The treehouse he lives in with Jake is a kind of fortress of childhood, full of weapons and snacks and video games and a sentient little computer named BMO. And the central fact of Finn's life at this point is that he loves every single second of it. The early seasons of Adventure Time go out of their way to keep the world small around him. There is the Candy Kingdom, and there are princesses to rescue, and there are dungeons full of monsters to fight, and there is the Ice King to chase off whenever he tries to steal someone. The rules of the world, as Finn understands them, are simple. Bad guys do bad things. Heroes stop them. Princesses get saved. Jake makes pancakes. Then everyone does it all again the next day. There is no grief in this world that lasts longer than an episode. There is no consequence that follows Finn into the next morning. When something bad happens, the show resolves it before the credits roll. When Finn gets hurt, he heals. When something is lost, it usually comes back. This is what childhood is supposed to look like, and the show knows it. The reason the early seasons feel so warm and so unbothered is because the writers were drawing a baseline they would spend the next 10 seasons quietly undoing. Pendleton Ward, who created the show, has said in interviews that he wrote the first episodes the way someone might run a game of Dungeons and Dragons with a friend. You go into the dungeon, you find the treasure, you come back out. There is no deeper meaning to the dungeon. The dungeon is just the dungeon. That energy comes through in everything Finn does in season 1. He is not on a hero's journey yet. He is just a hero. The journey part comes later, when the world starts asking him questions he cannot answer with a sword. The very first episode of the show, called Slumber Party Panic, gives you almost the purest possible introduction to who this boy is. Princess Bubblegum is conducting a science experiment that accidentally raises a small army of candy zombies, and she enlists Finn and Jake to help contain the situation. The plot of the episode is silly. The episode itself is barely about anything, but what it shows you is Finn at his most fundamental. He is enthusiastic. He is loyal. He is willing to do anything Princess Bubblegum asks, even before he is really old enough to know why he is so willing. He swears an oath to her in the episode. He swears it with the seriousness of a knight in a fairy tale, and he means every word of it. And the show plays the moment for both laughs and something a little tenderer. The little knight has found his queen. The little knight does not yet know how this story usually ends. The episode that maybe captures this earliest version of Finn best is Memories of Boom Boom Mountain. In it, Finn goes around solving the problems of every creature he can find in the forest, one after another, with a kind of cheerful relentlessness that would be exhausting in a real person. He helps a tiny creature. He helps a tree. He helps a mountain. He does not stop to ask whether any of these problems are really his to solve. The episode does eventually slow down to give him a memory of being a baby, alone in the woods, before Jake's parents found him and adopted him. The implication, even this early, is that Finn helps everyone because nobody helped him at the moment he most needed it. But the show does not push the point. It plants the seed and moves on. The episode ends with Finn happy and Jake happy, and a long, slow walk back to the treehouse. The wound is mentioned. The wound is not opened. This is the rhythm of early Finn. He carries hints of things that will hurt him later, and the show shows you those hints, and then it lets him run off and have an adventure before any of them can settle in. He has a kind of innocence that is not naive in the bad way, the way that gets you laughed at. It is the kind of innocence that comes from never having been forced to question whether the way you see the world is actually right. He believes in good and evil. He believes in heroes. He believes that if you try hard enough and fight bravely enough and stay loyal to your friends, things will turn out okay. None of these beliefs are wrong, exactly. They are just incomplete, in a way that Finn cannot yet see and the audience can. His relationship with Jake in these early years is the anchor for all of it. Jake is older, although the show is loose about exactly how much older. Jake is calmer. Jake has hobbies. Jake Jake plays the viola. Jake has a girlfriend, a magical rainbow creature named Lady Rainicorn, who speaks Korean, and whom Finn adores in the uncomplicated way a younger brother might adore an older brother's partner. Jake is, in the simplest possible terms, the person who makes sure Finn does not fall off a cliff while chasing something shiny. The two of them are a unit. The fist bumps, the catchphrases, the way they finish each other's sentences, the way they sing little songs together while making spaghetti. It is one of the warmest sibling dynamics in animated television, and the show treats it like a given, the same way it treats the existence of the sun. Finn and Jake are. That is the foundation. There is a small moment in an early episode where Jake stretches his body into a couch shape so Finn can sit on him while they watch BMO play a video game. There is no plot reason for this moment. The episode does not need it. The show puts it in because it is the kind of thing brothers do when they are alone in a house, and one of them happens to be able to turn into furniture. Adventure Time is full of these small domestic beats in its early seasons. Finn pouring cereal, Finn brushing his teeth, Finn falling asleep on the floor with his hat still on. The show is, very quietly, establishing the texture of this boy's home life, so that when the show starts taking things from him later, the audience will know exactly what is being lost. The treehouse is not just a setting. The treehouse is a fact of Finn's inner life. It is the place where he is safe, where he is loved, where the worst thing that can happen is BMO running out of batteries. What is interesting watching it back now is how the show signals that this version of Finn will not last. There are little tells, scattered through the early seasons, that the writers were already thinking about who he would become. In one episode, he meets a legendary adventurer named Billy, who Finn idolizes, and Billy tries to convince Finn that violence is not the answer to most problems. Finn does not really hear him. He is too excited to be in the same room as his hero, but the line is there. The seed is planted. Years later, Finn will remember it. In another early episode, Finn briefly meets his future self in a kind of magical vision, and his future self is missing his right arm. The show flashes the image and moves on. It does not explain. It just shows you, very quietly, that the boy you are watching is not going to stay whole forever. The episode called Henchman is one of the first places where the show lets itself get a little darker around the edges. In it, Finn agrees to be the servant of Marceline the Vampire Queen, who he believes is evil and who he is trying to thwart from the inside. The episode reveals, slowly, that Marceline is not actually evil. She has been pranking him the whole time. She is just lonely. She is just bored. She is just a 1,000-year-old vampire who likes to scare people because that is one of the few amusements left to her after several centuries of existence. Finn, in the end, becomes her friend instead of her enemy. The episode is funny. The episode is also one of the first signs that Finn's clean cartoon morality, the way he divides the world into heroes and villains, is going to start running into trouble. Marceline is not a villain. The world is going to keep producing people like Marceline, who do not fit the boxes Finn has built, and Finn is going to have to keep widening his understanding of who counts as a friend. There is something almost gentle about the way the early seasons keep these things in the background. The show is not trying to scare you with what is coming. It is just letting you spend time with Finn the way he is, before anything has happened to him, so that when things do happen, you will remember what he was. You will remember the kid who shouted his catchphrase at the top of his lungs while jumping off a cliff. You will remember the kid who genuinely thought a fart joke was the height of comedy. You will remember the kid who could fall asleep anywhere, on any surface, with his hat still on, because nothing in his head was keeping him awake yet. The crushes come early too, but at first they are crushes in the same way a 12-year-old has crushes. Finn likes Princess Bubblegum because she is older and pretty and smart, and he does not really understand what any of that means. He gets flustered around her. He invents excuses to see her. He makes her gifts that are deeply embarrassing in hindsight. The show plays it for laughs at first because it is funny, and because that is how those feelings work at that age. There is no real chance of a relationship. Princess Bubblegum is an adult and a ruler of a kingdom. Finn is a child with a hat. The gap between them is not a tragedy yet. It is just a fact of life that Finn has not fully absorbed. In an early episode called Ricardio the Heart Guy, Finn becomes wildly, comically jealous of a strange new suitor who appears at the Candy Kingdom to woo Princess Bubblegum. The suitor turns out to be the literal heart of the Ice King, somehow ambulatory and dangerous. But before any of that is revealed, the episode spends most of its time letting Finn be angry, in a way that is funny precisely because he cannot quite explain to himself why he is so angry. He just is. He does not know how to be in the same room as a man who might have a real chance with the woman Finn is too young to date. The show plays the comedy of his jealousy with affection rather than mockery. It treats his feelings as real, even as it acknowledges that he is not yet old enough to do anything with them. This is the way the show is going to handle most of his early emotional life. It will let him feel things. It will not give him anywhere to put them yet. And the strange thing, watching the early seasons now, is how much of Finn's later character is already there in pieces, just waiting. The kindness, the stubbornness, the capacity for big feelings that he does not yet know how to handle. The way he forms attachments quickly and deeply, almost too deeply, quietly, in a way that will eventually break his heart. The way he wants to be good more than anything, even when goodness is not clear. The way he will go to extraordinary lengths for the people he loves, even when those people do not deserve it. All of it is there, in this loud, cheerful 12-year-old version of him. It is just covered up by the noise of being a child. His sword, in these early seasons, is just a sword. He uses it. He picks up new ones when he loses old ones. There is no special weight to it yet. There is no sense, watching him swing a blade at a candy zombie, that the act of fighting will eventually become something he questions. He fights because fighting is what heroes do. He saves because saving is what heroes do. The blade in his hand is no different to him than the hat on his head, just another piece of equipment that comes with the job. The show will, very slowly, change what that blade means to him, but not yet, not in these early hours. There is a sweetness to going back and watching these first seasons after you know everything that comes after. There is a specific kind of feeling that comes from watching a character at the start of a long arc, when you know what is coming, and they do not. It is not quite sadness, because nothing bad is happening yet. It is more like the feeling of looking at an old photograph of yourself as a kid. You see the face that does not know yet. You see the smile that has not been tested yet. You see all of it, frozen, and you feel a tenderness toward that earlier version that you could not have felt at the time. That is what Finn is in these early seasons. He is the photograph. He is the version of himself that does not know what is coming. The show, very wisely, does not tell him. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The boy in the treehouse is still whole. His arm is still attached. His father is still a mystery he is excited about rather than afraid of. But the first crack in the simple version of his world is about to appear, and it is going to come from the person he has loved most quietly and most hopelessly. Section 2. The first crush and the first lesson in disappointment. The first thing to understand about Finn's feelings for Princess Bubblegum is that they were never going to work out, and the show knew that from the very beginning. The age gap is real. Princess Bubblegum is canonically 827 years old, although she usually presents herself as someone in her late teens or early 20s because she chooses to. Finn is 12 when the show starts. By the time his feelings for her become a real plot point, he has aged up a year or two, but the gap has not shrunk in any meaningful way. She is a centuries-old scientist who runs an entire kingdom. He is a kid who lives in a treehouse with a dog. The two of them are not on the same plane of existence in any sense that matters, and yet Finn loves her, in the particular way that a young person loves someone they cannot have. Quietly, completely, with a kind of total certainty that the world will eventually reward his devotion if he just keeps being good enough for long enough. The show treats this as both funny and sad, often in the same scene. Finn gets flustered around her in a way that he does not get flustered around anyone else. He stammers. He blushes through his cartoon skin. He tries to act older than he is, deepening his voice and standing up straighter, and the effect is the opposite of what he wants. He looks even smaller. Princess Bubblegum, for her part, is kind to him. She does not mock him. She does not push him away. She treats his feelings the way an adult might treat the feelings of a child who has developed a crush on his babysitter, with warmth, with care, with a careful avoidance of giving him anything he could mistake for hope. She lets him hang around. She lets him help. She gives him tasks to do, and she calls him a good night, and she pats him on the head. And Finn takes every one of these gestures and stores them in his heart as evidence that one day she will see him differently. The episode that lays out the dynamic most plainly is Too Young, which comes in the 3rd season. In it, a magical accident temporarily turns Princess Bubblegum into a 13-year-old, the same approximate age as Finn. For one brief stretch of episode, the gap that has been keeping them apart disappears. They are the same age. They run around together. They laugh at the same jokes. They behave for the first time like two kids who like each other and could conceivably be a couple. Finn is happier than he has ever been. The show lets him have this moment. It also makes clear in every shot that the moment is temporary. The accident wears off. Princess Bubblegum returns to her real age. The window closes. She tells Finn, gently, that things have to go back to the way they were. He does not argue. He just nods. The disappointment is not a tantrum. It is a quiet absorption of something he had hoped would last. And the show lets that quiet land without underlining it. What is striking about that scene, watching it back now, is how much of Finn's later character is visible in his reaction. The younger version of him would have argued. The younger version of him would have thrown a fit or come up with some elaborate plan to keep her young. The Finn at the end of Too Young is starting, just barely, to understand that some things cannot be argued with. Some things just are. The science of who Princess Bubblegum is goes back to a state that does not include him as a romantic option, and he, slowly, finds a way to be okay with that. Or at least, to act like he is. The acting is, at this stage, almost as important as the actual being okay. Children practice being okay with things long before they actually become okay with them. The practice is part of the work. What is interesting about the way the show handles this period of Finn's life is how it refuses to make Princess Bubblegum the villain of his feelings. She is not stringing him along. along. She is not using him. She genuinely cares about him in a way that is not romantic and was never going to be. The show gives her her own life. She is busy. She has a kingdom to run. She has experiments to conduct. She has political problems and old enemies, and an extremely complicated history with Marceline the Vampire Queen that the show only hints at for years before finally confirming it in the finale. Princess Bubblegum is a whole person, and Finn's feelings for her are only one small thing in her enormous life. He is, to her, a beloved young friend, nothing more. She has never pretended otherwise. The hard part for Finn is that he keeps hoping. He has set up his entire emotional life around the idea that if he is brave enough and good enough and helpful enough, he will eventually win her. And the show keeps showing him, again and again, that this is not how it works. The world does not owe him a reward for being a good person. Other people do not owe him their hearts because he has decided he wants them. This is a hard lesson at any age, and Finn is learning it earlier than most kids do, in front of an audience of millions, in a children's cartoon that was, at the time, mostly being marketed on the strength of its weird jokes and its catchy theme song. There is an episode called Wizard Battle, in which Finn enters a magical competition where the prize is a kiss from Princess Bubblegum. The whole episode is structured around his pursuit of this kiss. He fights through wave after wave of wizards. He bends the rules of the competition. He throws himself, body and soul, into the chance to win something that should not even be on offer. And when he finally wins, Princess Bubblegum refuses to give him the kiss. She is furious that the contest was structured this way to begin with. She makes clear, in a way she has not quite made clear before, that her affection is not a prize that anyone can win in a tournament. The episode ends with Finn awkward and unsatisfied, having technically won the thing he wanted, and somehow ended up further from it than when he started. The show is teaching him, in episode after small episode, that the rules of fairy tales do not apply to real people. The princess is not a reward. The princess is a person, and the person does not love you back. There are episodes that capture how much Finn cannot let go of this. In What Have You Done?, he agrees to a morally questionable plan because Princess Bubblegum asks him to, and he does it not because the plan is right, but because she asked. In Mortal Folly and Mortal Recoil, he risks his life and Jake's life to save her from the Lich, an ancient evil that wants to destroy all life in the universe, and the show plays his devotion as both heroic and a little worrying. Finn would die for her. Finn would let the world burn for her, if it came to that. And at this point in the show, he is too young to know that this is not actually a healthy thing to feel about another person. It is just love, as he understands love. Total, unconditional. A promise made to himself that he will be the one she eventually chooses. The Mortal Recoil arc deserves a closer look here because of what it reveals about Finn's emotional state. Princess Bubblegum, possessed by the Lich, is dying. Finn, watching the medical staff of the Candy Kingdom work to save her, is in a kind of frozen panic that the show animates with real care. His face is locked. His body is rigid. He cannot do anything. He cannot fight this. He cannot sword his way out of it. This is one of the first times in the show where Finn confronts a situation where his usual tools simply do not apply, and it almost breaks him. When Princess Bubblegum is finally saved, the relief on his face is enormous. The relief on her face is also enormous, but for different reasons. She returns to herself, but the version of herself she returns to is younger than she was before, an accidental side effect of the magic that saved her. The age gap shrinks, the window opens again, briefly, and Finn does not even fully realize it is open before life intervenes and other plots take over. The show is, in its quiet way, dangling possibilities in front of him and then closing them, one after another, because the show wants him to learn that some doors will not stay open just because he wants them to. The show takes its time letting this hope die. There are episodes where it gets a little stronger and episodes where it gets a little weaker, and across the early and middle seasons, it is always there in the background, like a low hum. Even when Finn meets other characters he might be interested in, the bubblegum thing is still in him. He cannot quite shake it. He cannot quite see her as anything other than the future he is waiting to grow into. And the show, with a kind of gentle patience, keeps showing him moments that should be enough to break the spell and watching him refuse to absorb them. There is a moment where Princess Bubblegum looks at him and tells him, more or less directly, that she sees him as a kid. He hears the words. He does not let them in. He is not ready to let them in. What makes this period of Finn's life so emotionally resonant, watching it now, is how true it is to what unrequited love actually feels like at that age. The first big crush a person has is rarely a crush that goes anywhere. It is almost always on someone unreachable. A teacher, an older sibling's friend, a celebrity, a neighbor who has no idea you exist. The point of that first big crush is not the relationship. The point is the experience of feeling something that big for the first time and not knowing what to do with it. The point is learning that you have a heart and that your heart can hurt and that other people will not always do what you want them to do with the love you have offered them. Princess Bubblegum is Finn's first lesson in this, and the show, to its credit, refuses to give him an easy resolution. She does not change her mind. She does not realize she has loved him all along. She just goes on with her life, kindly, and lets him slowly figure out that she is not the answer to the question he has been asking. There is an episode much later in the show called Burning Low, where Jake sits Finn down and explains with diagrams and everything that people go through stages in relationships, and that Finn's feelings for Princess Bubblegum were a stage, and that he has now moved on to the next one. It is a strange scene because it is one of the few moments in the show where a major emotional shift is explained out loud rather than just shown. But it works in a quiet way, because by that point in the show, the audience has watched Finn carry the bubblegum thing for so long that they need to be told plainly that it is over. Jake tells him. Finn nods. The next stage of his emotional life is about to begin, and it will hurt him in ways the first stage never could, because the next stage will involve a person who actually likes him back. But before he gets there, the show gives him one last moment with the bubblegum dream, and it is the moment that finally breaks it. In an episode called What Was Missing, the gang has to express something they really want in order to open a magical door, and Finn sings a song to Princess Bubblegum that is, by the standards of a children's cartoon, devastatingly honest about how he feels. He tells her he wants to bury her in the ground. He tells her he wants to make her smile. He tells her, in the awkward, half-formed language of a 13-year-old, that he wants her to need him the way he needs her. Princess Bubblegum hears the song. She does not run to him. She does not change. She just looks at him with the same kindness she has always shown him. And Finn understands, maybe for the first time, that singing the song did not unlock the door he wanted. It unlocked a different door, and that door leads somewhere he did not plan to go. The lesson of this stretch of the show for Finn is that being a hero does not entitle you to anything. You can save someone's life 100 times and still not be the person they fall in love with. You can offer your whole heart to someone, and they can simply not have a place to put it. The world does not run on fairness in matters of the heart, and Finn, who has built his entire identity around being fair and being brave and being good, has to swallow this. It is the first thing the show ever asks him to swallow, that he cannot just punch his way through. There is no enemy here. There is no quest. There is just a person who does not love him back, and a feeling in his chest that he does not know what to do with, and the slow, quiet work of letting it go. And he does let it go. Not all at once, not cleanly. But the next person he falls for will not be Princess Bubblegum. The next person will be someone who likes him too, and that is going to teach him a whole new kind of heart. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The dream of Princess Bubblegum quietly closes its door, and for a long moment, Finn is left standing in front of it, not yet ready to turn around. What waits on the other side is warm, in a way he has never been warm before. Section 3. Fire and the cost of wanting too much. The thing nobody tells you about getting what you wanted is that it asks more of you than wanting it ever did. Finn spent the early seasons of the show wishing someone would look at him the way he looked at Princess Bubblegum, and when that wish finally got answered, it did not arrive the way he had imagined. It did not arrive as a softer version of Bubblegum. It arrived as a girl made of literal fire, who could not touch anything without burning it, whose feelings ran so hot that they could level a forest, whose very existence was unstable in a way that demanded careful handling. Her name was Flame Princess, although her real name turned out to be Phoebe, and she walked into Finn's life through the back door, almost by accident, in a way nobody saw coming, including Finn. She first appears in an episode called Incendium, which is one of those episodes the show used to set up future arcs without making a big deal about it. Jake, in an attempt to find Finn a girlfriend after the slow death of the bubblegum dream, goes off to the Fire Kingdom to recruit one. He shrinks himself down, pretends to be Finn, and sings songs at the Flame King's daughter, who has been locked away because her father considers her too dangerous to keep around. Jake gets her interested. Jake gets her excited. Jake gets her to come visit Finn, and the result is that a girl made of fire arrives at the treehouse expecting a boyfriend, and Finn, who has had no idea any of this was happening, opens the door to a stranger who immediately tries to set him on fire because she thinks he has been lying to her. It is a chaotic first meeting. The treehouse nearly burns down. The episode ends with the misunderstanding more or less resolved, and Finn left standing in a smoking yard, staring at the girl who just tried to kill him, feeling something he has never felt before. What follows in the next episode, Hot to the Touch, is one of the gentlest courtship sequences the show ever produced. Finn goes looking for her. He finds her in the forest, accidentally setting trees on fire just by walking through them, alone, scared, unsure of where to go now that she has left the Fire Kingdom behind. Finn tries to talk to her. He tries to put out the fires she is starting, which she takes as an attack. The two of them dance around each other in a way that is funny and sad and tender all at once, because Finn does not know how to approach her without hurting her, and she does not know how to be approached without hurting him. It is the show's way of saying very clearly that this relationship is going to require both of them to learn an entirely new way of being with another person. The old rules will not apply. The patterns Finn used with Bubblegum will not work here. He has to start over. What is striking about the early Flame Princess episodes is how seriously the show takes Finn's effort to be a good boyfriend. He builds her a little house in the woods, made of stone and dirt, materials that will not burn. He brings her gifts. He asks her about her feelings. He worries about whether she is happy. He worries about how he smells around her, because he has never had to think about smelling like anything before. The episode Burning Low captures all of this in a way that is almost too relatable to be funny. Finn is suddenly preoccupied with his own body in a way he never was as a generic hero. He looks at himself in the mirror differently. He fusses with his hat. He thinks about whether his breath is okay. Jake gives him the now famous talk about relationship tiers, complete with diagrams, explaining what each stage of getting closer to someone might involve. And Finn absorbs all of it with a kind of wide-eyed seriousness that the show plays for laughs, but also clearly respects. He is not the same boy who used to chase princesses just to save them. He is trying, very hard, to be a person worthy of being someone's actual partner. The relationship works for a while. The show gives them episodes together that are warm and quiet and small, the way young love often is. There is an episode called Vault of Bones, where Finn promises to take her on a date to a dungeon, which is the closest Finn can come to romance at this stage of his life. And the date goes wrong in 100 small ways, but the show treats their effort with affection rather than mockery. They are figuring it out. They are clumsy and weird about it. They like each other anyway. This is what real young love looks like, even in a magical kingdom full of talking dogs and ice wizards. Two people trying to be careful with each other when neither of them has done this before. And then, slowly, the cracks start to show, in the way cracks always start to show in a first relationship. Finn wants things he does not yet have the maturity to handle. Flame Princess has needs Finn does not yet know how to meet. The show does not blame either of them for this. The show just lets it happen, the way it happens in real life, where two young people who genuinely care about each other can still wear each other down by being who they are. The breaking point arrives in an episode called Frost and Fire, near the end of season 5, and it is one of the most quietly devastating things the show ever did. The plot is this. Finn starts having dreams about Flame Princess, specifically dreams in which she is fighting the Ice King, two opposing elements colliding, and the dreams are intense in a way Finn cannot quite admit out loud. The show is very careful about how it handles this. It does not say anything explicitly. It just shows you Finn waking up confused, frustrated, full of feelings he does not have language for. The implication is clear to any adult watching, and the show trusts that part of its audience to understand without spelling it out. Finn, in his teenage confusion, decides that he wants more of these dreams, so he engineers a way to make them happen. He manipulates the Ice King into attacking Flame Princess on purpose, knowing that she will retaliate, knowing that the fight will give him another dream that night. It works. It also destroys his relationship. Flame Princess figures out what he has done. She comes to him while he is asleep, watches him have the dream he engineered, and confronts him about it when he wakes. The scene that follows is one of the most quietly painful in the entire series. There is no shouting. There is no fire. There is just a girl who trusted someone, finding out that he used her and telling him so. She breaks up with him. She does not give him a second chance. She does not let him explain. She just walks away, and the show lets her, because she is right to. What makes this episode such a hinge point for Finn's emotional arc is that it is the first time he ever did something he knew was wrong while he was doing it, and did it anyway. Everything bad that had happened to him up to this point had happened to him from the outside. People had not loved him back. Battles had gone badly. The world had not given him what he wanted. But Frost and Fire is the first time Finn is the one who causes the damage. He is the one who lies. He is the one who hurts someone who trusted him. The show makes him sit in this. The aftermath stretches across multiple episodes. He cannot eat. He cannot sleep. He cannot stop thinking about what he did. Jake tries to comfort him and cannot quite reach him, because there is no version of this where Finn is the victim. He did this. He has to carry it. The follow-up episode, Too Old, makes the wound worse. Finn, hurting from the breakup, briefly tries to slide back toward Princess Bubblegum, half hoping that maybe she will be the answer now that the Flame Princess thing is over. He goes to visit her at the Lemongrab's castle, where she has been dealing with one of her own messes, and he tries to flirt with her in a way that is clumsy and a little desperate. Bubblegum, who has always been kind to him, is too distracted to even notice at first. When she does notice, she shuts it down gently but completely. She is not interested. She was never going to be interested. The two of them are not on the same page and never have been. Finn leaves the castle on Jake's back, lying flat, staring up at the sky, and the show gives him one of its longest and quietest scenes. He says, almost to himself, that the heart can be a real bad scientist. He has lost 2 relationships in the space of a few episodes. He has done damage to a girl who liked him. He has discovered that the girl he always wanted will not have him. And there is no enemy to fight at the end of this. There is no dungeon to clear. There is just the slow ride home, with Jake stretched out beneath him and the sky above, and the new fact that being a person is much harder than being a hero ever was. Watching Frost and Fire and Too Old back to back, you can see the show making a deliberate choice. It is choosing to age its protagonist by hurting him. It is choosing to take a character character who used to solve everything with a sword and put him in a situation where the sword is useless. It is asking the audience to sit with him while he learns what it actually feels like to be the one in the wrong. And it is doing all of this without ever lecturing the viewer or him. The show does not tell Finn what he should have done differently. It does not give him a speech. It just lets the consequences land and trusts him and the audience to absorb them. Finn does absorb them. Not right away, not cleanly. But the boy who walks out of these episodes is not the same boy who walked into them. He has done something he cannot undo. He has lost something he cannot get back. And the show, in its patient way, is just beginning to take things from him. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. A breakup is one kind of loss, and it leaves its mark on him. But the next loss waiting for Finn is older and deeper than anything a relationship could give him. It is the question he has carried since the beginning of the show, the question of who his father is, and the answer is finally coming. Section 4. The father he was hoping for. The thing about Finn's father is that he was a mystery for so long that the mystery itself became part of Finn's identity. From the earliest episodes of the show, it was established that Finn was a human, possibly the only human left in the entire land of Ooo, and that he had been raised by a family of dogs. His adoptive parents, Joshua and Margaret, had found him as a baby, alone in the wilderness, and they had taken him in and raised him alongside Jake as one of their own. Joshua and Margaret were good parents. The show is clear about this. They loved Finn. They taught him to be brave and kind. They died, eventually, sometime before the start of the series, and the loss of them is a quiet sadness that the show acknowledges in a few flashback episodes, but does not dwell on. By the time the show starts, Finn has already been an orphan for a while, and he has Jake, and he has the treehouse, and life is full enough that he does not often stop to think about the people who came before. But the question of his biological father is different. Joshua and Margaret were the parents who raised him. The unknown human man who fathered him was something else entirely. He was a question that had no answer. He was the missing piece of the puzzle of who Finn actually was. And the show, for years, kept this mystery quietly running in the background, dropping hints and teases without ever resolving it. There was the episode where Finn first realized he might not be the only human. There was the mutant, Susan Strong. There was the slow expansion of the lore around the Great Mushroom War, the apocalyptic conflict that had wiped out most of humanity 1,000 years before the show began. Through all of it, Finn carried the unanswered question of his father like a small stone in his pocket. He did not bring it out often, but it was always there. There is an episode in the early seasons called Dad's Dungeon, in which Joshua, Finn's adoptive father, reaches out from beyond the grave through an old recorded tape, sending Finn on a quest through a dungeon that Joshua himself built before he died, specifically as a place where Finn could become tougher and braver. The episode is, in its quiet way, devastating. Joshua loved Finn enough to construct an entire training environment for him to grow up in. Joshua wanted his son to be strong. Joshua, even from beyond death, is still parenting Finn in the only way he knows how, by giving him a dungeon to walk through. And Finn, walking through it, is overwhelmed in a way the show does not entirely resolve in the episode itself. Joshua was a real father. Joshua was the father who actually raised him, and yet the question of the other one, the unknown biological man, is still sitting underneath everything, because that is how this kind of question works. It does not matter how many good parents you had. The missing one is the one your mind keeps returning to. In another early episode called Henchman, the show plays with the idea of Finn looking for father figures everywhere. He attaches himself briefly to Marceline, then to Billy, then to anyone with a little more life experience who might tell him who he is supposed to be. The show does not make any of this explicit. It just lets Finn keep reaching for older mentors in the way a child reaches for them, instinctively, hungry for guidance that he cannot quite get from a brother his own age, even a brother as good as Jake. The pattern is there if you watch for it. Finn is, beneath the cheerful surface, always looking for the answer to a question he is not yet ready to ask out loud. The first real hint comes in an episode called Billy's Bucket List. Billy, the legendary adventurer Finn worshipped as a child, has died, and Finn finds a list of things Billy never got to do, including a final entry that reveals Finn's father is alive and trapped in a prison called the Citadel. Finn has wanted this answer for so long that the news lands like a thunderclap. His father is alive. His father is somewhere. His father can be found. The episode ends with Finn determined to track him down, and the audience, who has been waiting for this reveal for years, leans forward in anticipation. We have all built this man up in our heads. We have all imagined what kind of father a boy like Finn would have. We have imagined someone brave, someone kind, someone heroic in the way Finn is heroic. The show has been letting us imagine for years. Billy's death itself is part of the texture here. Billy was, for a long stretch of the early show, Finn's clearest example of what a great hero looked like as an adult. Billy was massive. Billy was wise. Billy had the kind of weathered, calm strength that Finn wanted to grow into. When the Lich kills Billy in the Season 4 finale, the loss is one of the first times the show really lets a death death hit Finn the way death actually hits a person. Billy was a kind of father figure to him, in the loose, distant way heroes can be fathers to the boys who look up to them. And Billy's bucket list, with its final entry about Finn's real father, is the dying mentor handing the son the next piece of the puzzle on his way out. The show is, very carefully, lining up the emotional dominoes. Billy is gone. Joshua is gone. The next father in line is the one Finn has never met. The boy is about to meet him. The two-part episode that finally delivers the answer, Wake Up and Escape from the Citadel, is one of the most carefully constructed emotional sequences in the show's entire run. The first part, Wake Up, is mostly setup. Finn and Jake travel through cosmic space, navigate the rules of multidimensional prisons, deal with the godlike being Prismo, and prepare themselves for the meeting that has been a decade in coming. The show takes its time. The pacing is slow on purpose. The audience is being walked, gently, toward a door that nobody knows how to prepare for, including Finn. There is a moment in Wake Up where Prismo, who exists in a kind of dream space and is one of the most relaxed cosmic beings in all of fiction, explains the rules of the Citadel to Finn. The Citadel, he says, is a prison built specifically for cosmic criminals, beings whose crimes are so significant that no regular jail could hold them. To gain entry, Finn would have to commit a cosmic crime himself, although Prismo has a workaround that involves a sleeping older version of himself elsewhere in the universe. The information is delivered casually. Finn does not catch the implication that for his father to be in this prison, his father must have done something terrible. Finn does not let the implication land, because Finn does not want the implication to land. He has been waiting too long for this moment to let any unpleasant facts about his father slow him down. The audience catches it. The audience knows. But Finn is not ready to hear what the show is already telling him. Hope is louder than warning at this age, and it almost always wins. And then, in Escape from the Citadel, the door opens. Finn sees his father for the first time. The man's name is Martin. He is trapped in a crystal, suspended in some kind of cosmic stasis. And when Finn breaks him out, the first thing Martin does is fail to recognize his own son. He calls him Flynn. He cannot remember his name. He cannot remember Finn at all, or claims he cannot. And the show is very careful to leave it ambiguous whether he is genuinely amnesiac or simply pretending in order to avoid the conversation. Finn does not catch the ambiguity. Finn is too busy trying to make this moment match the version of it he has had in his head for years. He tries to bond. He tries to ask questions. He tries to get his father to care about who he is and what his life has been. Martin deflects all of it. Martin is more interested in escaping the Citadel than in talking to the child he abandoned. Stephen Root voices Martin in a register that is so disarming, it takes a second viewing to notice how cruel the performance actually is. Martin sounds friendly. Martin sounds warm. Martin sounds like he is the most easygoing man in the universe. The voice is doing the same work that Martin does in person, which is to coat every act of selfishness in a layer of charm so thick that you barely notice the selfishness underneath. The writers, in interviews about the episode, have said they wanted Martin to be as dishonorable as Finn is heroic. They did not want Finn to be a carbon copy of his father. They wanted the gap between the two of them to be huge and obvious, so that the show could ask, plainly, whether a person becomes who they are because of their parents or in spite of them. Joshua and Margaret raised Finn. Martin contributed nothing but DNA, and Finn turned out to be Finn. The show is saying something gentle but firm here about where character actually comes from. The show plays the disappointment in waves. There is a long stretch in the middle of the episode where Finn is just trying to fix things. He patches up Martin's wounded leg using the healing blood of a fallen guardian. He answers Martin's questions about Ooh. He laughs nervously at Martin's jokes, even when the jokes are mean, even when the jokes are at Finn's expense. He is a kid trying so hard to make his father like him that he does not notice, or chooses not to notice, that his father is not really there at all. Martin is a con man. The show makes this clear without spelling it out. Every smile is calculating. Every kind word is a lever being pulled. Martin is sizing his son up the way he sizes up everyone he meets, and the moment he figures out he can use Finn, he uses him. The healing blood scene is worth pausing on, because it is one of the most quietly heartbreaking pieces of staging in the entire show. A guardian has been wounded. Its blood pools on the ground, glowing with the healing properties that everyone in the Citadel has been talking about. Martin's leg is hurt. Finn has to choose, in that moment, whether to use the limited blood to heal his father or to do anything else with it. He chooses his father. Immediately, without hesitation, he cradles his father's leg. He pours the glowing liquid on the wound. He watches the flesh knit back together, and his face, in that moment, is the face of a child who is genuinely happy to be helping his dad with something. He is not thinking about strategy. He is not thinking about the larger situation. He is having a small son moment with the father he has waited his entire life to meet, and he is putting everything he has into it, because this is the version of fatherhood he wanted, and he has decided to enjoy it while it lasts. The show holds on his face for a beat longer than it strictly needs to. The beat is the show very gently asking the audience to remember this expression, because it is not going to last, and the loss of it will be specific. The ending of the episode is one of the hardest things the show ever asks its audience to watch. The Citadel begins to collapse. Martin sees a chance to escape with a group of other prisoners on a piece of floating debris that is being pulled away through a cosmic portal. He runs for it. He does not look back. He does not wait for Finn. He is just gone, almost immediately, the way a man might dash for a closing elevator without checking who is behind him. Finn, realizing what is happening, throws himself after his father. He grabs the platform Martin is escaping on. He tries to pull it back. He yells. He begs. Jake beside him tells him to let go, calls Martin a loser, says he is not worth it. Finn does not listen. Finn cannot listen. This is his father. This is the answer he has waited his whole life for. He is not going to lose it now. The visual language of the scene is doing a lot of work. The platform is being pulled upward through a portal that looks like a wound in the sky. Martin is standing on the platform, looking down at his son with an expression that is hard to read. Somewhere between mild annoyance and the kind of distant pity a person feels for a problem that is about to no longer be their problem. Finn is hanging onto a vine of plant matter that connects the platform to the ground. His feet are off the floor. His one good arm is straining. His face is going through every possible feeling in the span of seconds. There is hope. There is fear. There is desperation. There is a kind of pleading that the show animates in his eyes. A wordless asking for his father to just look at him properly, to just be a father for 1 second, to just say something that a father would say. Martin does not say anything that a father would say. Martin tells him to let go. Martin tells him this place is coming down quick, and he uses the same speech pattern Finn himself uses, the zip-zip language, in a moment of accidental father like son that the show plays as quietly devastating. They share a way of talking. They share in some small genetic way a rhythm, and it is not enough. It is never going to be enough. But he does lose it. One of the other escaping prisoners cuts the vine Finn is holding. Finn refuses to let go, and the grass sword that has been wrapped around his right arm, the cursed weapon that has been part of him for seasons now, takes over. It pulls. It strains. It tries to hold on with a strength beyond what Finn's body can offer. And then, in a moment of total silence, the arm comes off. The grass sword and the arm both tear away from Finn's body, and the platform escapes with them. And Martin is gone. And Finn is left kneeling at the edge of the collapsing citadel with a smooth, empty stump where his right arm used to be. The animation of this moment is worth describing in detail because of how carefully it was made. The grass sword, which had until this point been a kind of half-living vine wrapped around Finn's forearm, expands and engulfs his entire arm in green, taking on its own shape, becoming almost a creature of its own. The sword is trying to do what Finn wants. The sword is using every bit of its strange magic to hold on. And then the strain becomes too much, and the whole green mass detaches from Finn's body in one smooth motion, leaving the arm gone with it. There is no blood. There is no scream. There is no cartoon comedic punctuation. There is just a clean, almost beautiful separation, and a stump that is rounded and smooth and final, as if Finn had been built this way from the beginning. The fact that the grass sword takes the arm with it is not an accident in the writing. It is the show closing a long loop of foreshadowing. Many earlier episodes had hinted that Finn would lose his right arm. Alternate versions of him in other dimensions had been shown without it. Dream sequences had featured the loss. There had been an entire visual countdown happening in the background of the show for years, a slow drumbeat of inevitability that the audience had learned to recognize without quite knowing what it was leading to. And here, in the moment Finn loses his father, the show pays off all of that foreshadowing at once. The arm has always been going to come off. It comes off the day his father leaves him for the second time. The two losses are not coincidental. They are the same loss, expressed in two languages at once. The show does not score the moment heavily. There is no swelling music. There is no dramatic line of dialogue. There is just the silence, and Finn's face, and the slow realization that he has just lost two things at once. He has lost the father he was hoping for, and he has lost a part of his own body trying to hold on to him. The grief of one is folded into the grief of the other, in a way that the show will spend the next several seasons unfolding. Watching this episode now, knowing what comes after, the cruelty of Martin's character feels almost too on the nose, except that the show earns it. The show does not let Martin be a misunderstood man. The show does not give Finn a reconciliation scene where his father turns out to have had good reasons all along. Martin is just bad. Martin is the kind of bad that exists in the real world, the kind of parent who left and was never coming back, and was never going to be the person his child needed. The show, in its quiet way, is saying something important to anyone watching who has had a parent like this. Sometimes the answer to the question is worse than not knowing. Sometimes the person you imagined was not a person. Sometimes the only thing you can do is survive the answer. Years later, in an episode called The Visitor, Martin will briefly return to Ooo and try, in his half-hearted way, to give Finn a partial explanation for his absence. He will tell a story about a boat, about being being called away on a mission, about meaning to come back. The story will be a lie. Finn will know it is a lie. The show, by that point, will have already shown the audience what really happened on Hub Island in the episode Min and Marty, and the gap between the real story and the one Martin tells will be visible to everyone except Martin himself. But that comes later. That is a separate wound. Here, in the Citadel, all Finn has is the gap. All Finn has is the smooth stump where his arm used to be, and the empty cosmic space where his father used to be, and the long ride home to figure out what to do with both of them. And Finn, kneeling in the ruins of the Citadel with one arm and no father, is going to have to survive it. The show is just getting started on what that survival looks like, and the next thing it takes from him is going to be even harder than what it has already taken, because the next thing is the version of himself he thought he was. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The arm is gone, and the father is gone, but the deepest wound is the one Finn cannot yet name, the slow leaving of the boy he used to be. Section 5. Losing the arm, losing the self. The thing the show does very carefully in the episodes that follow the loss of Finn's arm is refuse to treat it as a heroic injury. There is no version of the story where losing an arm to save the day makes Finn cooler, or stronger, or more impressive. The show declines to write it that way. The arm is gone because Finn refused to let go of his father, a man who did not deserve to be held onto, and the loss is not earned in any noble sense. It is just a consequence. It is the price of a mistake that Finn did not realize was a mistake until it had already cost him a part of his body. And the show, with a kind of patient honesty, is going to make him live in that consequence for a long time. The immediate aftermath is shown in glimpses. Finn returns home. Jake is with him, quiet and worried, in a way that Jake is not often worried. The treehouse is the same as it always was, full of light and warmth and BMO playing video games in the corner. But Finn is not the same as he always was, and the gap between him and his surroundings is the first thing the show wants the audience to feel. He is wearing the same hat. He is sitting on the same couch, but there is a stump where his right arm used to be, and the stump is changing him in ways that go far beyond the physical. He looks smaller in his own home. He looks like he does not quite fit there anymore. Then, a few episodes later, something strange happens. A flower begins to grow out of the stump. It is small at first, just a green shoot, the kind of thing you might mistake for a weed if you were not looking. Then it blooms, and the show holds on it for a moment. This delicate pink and yellow thing growing out of the place where a sword and an arm used to be. The flower is the show's way of saying that the wound is also a beginning, although Finn cannot see that yet. He does not look at the flower with hope. He looks at it the way you might look at a scar, with confusion, with reluctance, with a kind of grim acceptance that this is what his body looks like now, and there is nothing he can do about it. The episode where the loss of the arm becomes a full emotional event is called The Tower. It is one of the most quietly important episodes the show ever made about Finn, and almost nothing happens in it in the conventional sense. There are no monsters, there are no fights, there is just Finn, alone in the treehouse, trying to make spaghetti with a clumsy candy prosthetic that Princess Bubblegum has given him as a temporary replacement. The candy arm is bulky, it does not respond properly, it crushes the pot, it breaks the dishes. Finn gets more and more frustrated as he tries to do something he used to be able to do without thinking, and eventually the candy arm just explodes off his body, and he is standing in his own kitchen, broken plates around him, looking at the empty space where his arm should be, and the show holds on his face for a long beat. Then Jake comes downstairs and tries to comfort him. In the gentle, bumbling way Jake comforts people, and Finn looks at his brother and says, almost casually, that what he really wants to do is punch his dad in the face and steal his arm. The line is funny on the surface. The show lets you laugh at it, but the line is also the first time Finn has named the anger that has been sitting in his chest since the Citadel, and once it is named, it begins to move. Jake leaves to buy new dishes. Finn, alone, decides to build a tower into space. Not metaphorically, literally. He starts piling dirt and grass on top of dirt and grass in his backyard, and the tower begins to grow, block by block, with Finn singing a small, sad song as he works. The song is one of the most affecting things in the entire series. It is about a baby building a tower into space to take his dad's arm. The baby in the song is Finn. The song is plainly the song of a boy who has not been okay for a long time and is finally letting himself feel why. The tower keeps growing. Hours pass. Days pass. The landscape around the treehouse begins to change as Finn rips up more and more of the earth to feed his construction. Cloud creatures get displaced. A penguin rookery is destroyed. Princess Bubblegum shows up to warn Jake that Finn's anger has manifested as a kind of phantom limb, an invisible arm of raw emotional energy that is doing all the building, and that it will keep doing this as long as the rage that powers it stays alive. The episode is making a quiet and beautiful point. Finn's anger is real. It is so real that it has become physical. It is so real that it can move mountains, literally. But it is also destroying the world around him while it works. The phantom arm is not a gift. The phantom arm is a wound that has learned to act on its own. Eventually, Finn reaches space, breathing thin, mind hazy from lack of oxygen, and he finds what looks like his father waiting for him in a spaceship. He attacks the man. He gets him down. He grabs the arm and prepares to tear it off as revenge. And then, something stops him. He looks at the man, beaten and small underneath him, and he realizes that even with the arm, even with revenge, he will not feel any better. He lets go. The man reveals himself to be Princess Bubblegum in disguise. She has tricked Finn. The whole spaceship was a fallout shelter she built to contain him while she figured out what to do. She tells him, gently, that she did not think he should actually go to space. Finn returns home. The phantom arm is gone. The tower, which he and Jake then dismantle together, collapses sideways and destroys a chunk of the Candy Kingdom that has nothing to do with anything. And the show ends the episode on that, with the wreckage and the calm and the silence, because the silence is the point. The tower is, in essence, an entire episode about Finn realizing that revenge will not give him his arm back. It is an episode about a boy learning that some things you have lost cannot be retrieved, no matter how high you build the tower. It is an episode about putting anger down because you finally understand that carrying it is also part of the wound. And the show makes him learn this without giving him a clean victory. The lesson is the absence of a fight. The lesson is the moment he chooses not to take the arm. But putting down the anger does not put down the sadness. The sadness is its own thing, and the show addresses it directly in the episode called Breezy, which comes shortly after. Breezy opens with Finn at a routine medical checkup with Dr. Princess. The flower on his stump is wilting. The petals are dull and falling off. Dr. Princess explains that the flower reflects his emotional state, and that his emotional state is, plainly, depression. She tells him to go out and have fun. She tells him that joy will help the flower bloom again. Finn, in the way only a teenage boy could, interprets this advice as a directive to make out with as many princesses as possible. What follows is a tour of ooh that is funny on the surface and devastating underneath. Finn, with the help of a tiny bee named Breezy, who has fallen in love with the flower on his arm, goes from kingdom to kingdom kissing princesses. He kisses Crab Princess. He kisses Lizard Princess. He kisses Mussel Princess. The kisses are quick. The kisses are surface. He moves on each time without feeling anything. The bee, Breezy, watches him with growing concern because the flower is not blooming. The flower is staying wilted, no matter how many kisses Finn collects. He is doing exactly what he was told to do, and it is not working, and he does not know what else to try. Breezy is one of the show's most quietly heartbreaking episodes because it captures something true about what depression actually feels like at that age. You are told that fun will fix it. You go looking for fun. The fun does not fix it. You start to wonder if there is something wrong with you that the fun cannot reach. Finn says, more than once across the episode, that he cannot feel anything. He says it casually, the way a person describes the weather. He is not crying. He is not screaming. He is just empty. He is the husk of a hero, going through the motions of being alive, and the show lets him stay in that emptiness for almost the entire runtime. The episode resolves in a strange and beautiful way. Breezy, who has slowly fallen in love with Finn himself rather than just the flower, sacrifices her freedom by drinking royal jelly and becoming a queen bee, gaining the power to save him from a swarm of hostile bees who do not approve of their friendship. Finn, exhausted, falls asleep, and in his sleep he has a kind of half-dream in which Breezy sings to him and the flower on his arm rapidly grows into a small tree, then explodes, revealing a brand new hand underneath the bark. He wakes up whole again. The arm is back. The flower is gone. The wound has, in some quiet and strange way, healed itself, but the show is careful to make clear that the healing is not the same as forgetting. Finn has his arm back, and a small thorn remains in the palm, a reminder of what happened, and he is older than he was before the Citadel. He has lived through a real depression. He has tried the wrong things and watched them fail. He has had to be carried for a moment by a friend who loved him without expecting anything back. He is a different person than he was. The boy who built the tower is not the boy who kissed all those princesses, and neither of them is the boy who walked into the Citadel in the first place. They are all just stages, layers, scars laid down over each other in the slow accumulation of growing up. The show, in its quiet way, has just done something rare. It has shown a young person losing a part of themselves and surviving it, not triumphing over it, not defeating it, just surviving it, one slow episode at a time, with the help of friends who stuck around and a body that eventually grew back. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The flower has bloomed and fallen, the arm has returned, but the quiet that follows a wound like this does not lift all at once. The next stretch of Finn's life is about that quiet and the strange, patient work of being a person while the worst of it is still leaving the room. Section 6. The Long Quiet. After there is a stretch of episodes in the middle of the show, somewhere between the loss of the arm and the discovery of his mother, where Finn is not doing very much, and the show is doing it on purpose. The plot lines slow down. The big arcs pause. The episodes become smaller, quieter, deeper, more interior. Finn is not on a quest. Finn is not chasing a villain. Finn is just living in the aftermath of everything that has happened to him. And the show is giving him room to do that without forcing him into another adventure to distract from it. This is one of the bravest choices the show ever made, because it goes against the entire structural logic of children's animation, which usually demands constant motion. Adventure Time, in its middle seasons, lets its main character sit still. It lets him be sad without giving him something to fight. It lets him heal at the pace healing actually takes. The episode that maybe captures this most precisely is one called Puhoi, which is older than the arm loss, but anticipates the mood of the later episodes so completely that it feels worth talking about here, because the mood it captures is the mood Finn lives in for a long stretch of the show. In Puhoi, Finn has had a small fight with Flame Princess. She did not laugh at one of his jokes. He has retreated into a pillow fort he and Jake are building inside the treehouse, and the pillow fort, in the way only a magical cartoon can manage, turns out to be a portal to a whole other world. Finn falls through. He lands in a kingdom made entirely of pillows, populated by pillow people, and after some initial confusion, he settles in. He marries a pillow woman. He has 2 pillow children. He grows old. The episode skips through decades of his life in this pillow world, and by the end of it, Finn is an old man, his hair gray, his face lined, lying in a bed surrounded by his pillow grandchildren, and he is preparing to die. The episode then snaps back to the present, where Finn has only been gone for a few minutes, and the pillow life turns out to have been a dream, or a vision, or a strange, magical interlude, never quite explained. Finn wakes up in the treehouse, in his real life, as a boy again. He does not seem upset about it. He shrugs it off. Flame Princess shows up. The argument is forgotten. The episode ends, but the audience is left with the strange residue of having watched a child live an entire other life, full of love and meaning and quiet old age, and then return to a body that is still 12 years old, and a problem that is just a small fight with his girlfriend. The episode is not exactly about anything. It is about everything. It is about the way the show is starting to treat Finn as a person who has interior weather, who carries possibilities and longings and the shapes of lives he has not lived yet. It is the first time the show really shows you that Finn has a soul big enough to hold more than oneself. After the Citadel, after the Arm, after Breezy, this kind of episode becomes more common. There is an episode called Walnuts and Rain, in which Finn wanders into a strange dimension while looking for inspiration for a journal entry. He meets a small group of beings called the Walnut People. He tries to write about them. He cannot find the right words. He sits in their strange, quiet world for a while. He comes home. There is no villain. There is no resolution. There is just Finn, slightly older than he was at the start of the show, learning that not every experience has to mean something. Some experiences are just there. Some experiences are just for being inside of, for a while, before you move on. There is an episode called Sad Face, in which Finn briefly joins a circus, gets manipulated by its cruel ringmaster, and eventually helps the circus animals escape. It is, on its surface, a small adventure, but the title is what stays with you. Sad Face. The episode is about Finn being talked into wearing a sad face for a job, and the metaphor barely tries to hide itself. Finn has been wearing a sad face for a while. The show is just naming it now, gently, in passing, the way a friend might mention something they have noticed about you without making you talk about it. In all of these episodes, the show is doing something unusual. It is trusting that the audience will stay with a protagonist who is not actively winning. It is trusting that children, and the adults watching alongside them, can sit with a character who is in the middle of recovering from something rather than triumphing over it. There is no shortcut here. The show is not going to give Finn a magic potion that fixes his depression. It is not going to give him a wise mentor who explains the right things to think. It is just going to let him live, day by day, in the slow, patient way real recovery happens. He hangs out with Jake. He plays games with BMO. He goes on small adventures. He eats sandwiches. He sleeps in his bed. He gets up the next morning. He does it all over again. What makes this stretch of the show so important to the arc of Finn's emotional growth is that it is the period when the show is teaching him, and the audience, what to do with feelings you cannot get rid of. Up to this point in his life, Finn has solved his problems by going somewhere. He has fought monsters. He has rescued princesses. He has chased his father across multiple dimensions. The pattern of his life has been motion. The show, in this stretch, is teaching him that some feelings will not be moved. Some feelings have to be sat with. Some feelings have to be lived inside of, the way you live inside a house in winter, until the season changes on its own and you can open the windows again. There is a softness to Finn in these episodes that was not there before. He is less loud. He is less quick to throw a punch. He spends more time looking at things. He spends more time listening. The show animates him slightly differently, too. His shoulders sit a little lower. His expressions linger a little longer. His eyes do not dart around the way they used to. He has become someone who has been hurt, and the show is committing to that, frame by frame, in the way only an animated show can. His friendships start to deepen in this period as well. The episodes with Jake become a little more tender, with fewer fights and more small moments of just being together. together. Finn starts to understand Jake as a separate person rather than a permanent fixture of his own life. Jake has children with Lady Rainicorn. Jake has hobbies that have nothing to do with Finn. Jake is going to be a father and a husband and a person whose attention cannot always be on his younger brother. Finn absorbs this slowly. He does not throw a fit about it, he just notices it. In the way a person starting to grow up notices that the people around him have lives of their own that do not orbit him. The show is preparing him for the eventual fact that Jake will not always be available, and Finn, watching it happen, is learning what it feels like to love someone whose presence in your life you cannot control. There is a scene, somewhere in this stretch, where Finn sits on the roof of the treehouse alone at night, looking up at the stars. The show does not give this scene a punchline. It does not cut away to a joke. It just lets him sit there, with the stars overhead and the wind in his hair and the small sound of crickets in the grass below. He does not say anything. He does not move very much. He just is. And the camera is patient with him, the way a friend would be patient. Some moments do not need anything else. Some moments are just the moments of being alive at a certain age, in a certain mood, on a certain night. And the show, with a kind of generosity that is rare in any medium, lets the moment be exactly what it is. This is the gift the middle of the show gives Finn. The gift of being allowed to feel without being asked to perform. The gift of being a person who is recovering rather than a hero who is fighting. The gift of time in a medium that rarely gives its protagonists time. And inside that time, slowly, almost without anyone noticing, he is becoming someone new. The boy who shouted his catchphrase off cliffs is still in there, but there are other people in there too now. There is the boy who lost an arm. There is the boy who did something wrong to a girl who loved him. There is the boy who reached for his father and came back with empty hands. There is the boy who built a tower out of his own anger and then took it down again. There is the old man from the Pillow World who lived a whole life Finn will not get to live. They are all stacked inside him, layer by layer, and the show is letting them settle. It is letting them become the foundation of whatever comes next. What comes next is going to ask something of him he has not yet been asked. The show is about to send him across the ocean, to a place he has only ever heard about in fragments, to meet the person who has been missing from his life since before he can remember. The middle of the show was the long quiet. The next part is when the silence finally has someone to speak to. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The quiet has done its work, and the boy who walks out of it is steadier than the one who walked in. What waits across the ocean is the answer to a question he has carried his whole life, and the hardest part of the answer is the goodbye. Section 7. Meeting his mother and saying goodbye the same day. For most of the show, the question of where Finn came from has been a kind of background hum, a steady low note underneath everything else. He knew he was a human. He knew he had been found in the woods as a baby. He knew that Joshua and Margaret, Jake's parents, had taken him in and raised him as their own. Beyond that, the trail went cold. The Great Mushroom War had wiped out most of the human race 1,000 years before the start of the show, and the survivors, if there were any, had vanished from public knowledge. Finn was, as far as anyone in Ooo could tell, the only human left. The epithet itself was right there in his name, Finn the Human. Not Finn the Brave, or Finn the Hero, or Finn the Adventurer. Finn the Human, as if his species was the most important thing about him, the one fact that set him apart from everyone he knew. The Islands miniseries, which arrived in Season 8, is the show's answer to that long, quiet question. Across 8 episodes that aired together over a single week, the show finally takes Finn out of Ooo entirely. He boards a ship with Jake and BMO and Susan Strong, the mutant woman who has long suspected she was something more than what she seemed, and the 4 of them sail across the ocean toward an archipelago of islands that nobody in Ooo has ever visited. The mood of the miniseries is different from anything the show had done before. It is slow. It is dreamlike. The pacing of each episode is contemplative in a way that feels closer to a long road movie than a children's cartoon. There are stretches of just the ocean. There are stretches of just the sky. The show gives Finn time to think about what he is doing before he gets to where he is going, and the audience gets to think with him. What Finn finds when they finally arrive at the islands is a society of human survivors who have been living in isolation for centuries. They look mostly human, although some of them are subtly different in ways that suggest generations of adaptation. They live in a structured, careful, fearful society, run by an order called the Helpers, who keep everyone safe and within strict boundaries. The humans of the islands are afraid of the outside world. They have been afraid of it for a very long time. Their entire culture is built around the principle that the outside is dangerous and the inside is safe, and that anyone who tries to leave is, by definition, sick. There are even specialists, called Seekers, whose job is to track down anyone who tries to flee and bring them back. Finn, walking through this society for the first time, is the most dangerous thing they have ever seen. He is a human who lives outside. He is proof that the outside is survivable. His existence threatens the entire foundation of their world. Susan, it turns out, was originally from this place. Her real name is Kara. She left as a young woman and was eventually mind-controlled controlled by the Helper's technology before escaping again, with most of her memory wiped. The miniseries takes its time letting Susan reconcile with her past, and one of its quiet strengths is how much room it gives her story, even though Finn is technically the protagonist. The show is generous like this. It does not see one character's emotional journey as a reason to crowd out another's. But the heart of the miniseries, the thing it has been building toward for 8 years of television, is Finn meeting his mother. Her name is Minerva Campbell. She was a helper. She was a doctor. She was, by all accounts, a kind and serious and devoted woman who loved her son very much and lost him in circumstances that were not her fault. Her relationship with Martin, which the miniseries also fills in through flashback episodes, was real. They had loved each other once. They had built a small domestic life together. Martin, in those early days, before he became the man Finn would meet in the Citadel, was actually trying. He was not a good man, but he was trying. And then the past caught up with him, and he had to flee with infant Finn to escape some of his old enemies, and the escape went wrong, and the baby was lost to the sea, and Martin ended up in the Citadel. Minerva, alone, had spiraled into a long depression that the show implies she never quite came out of. Then a virus arrived. The miniseries hints that it was unleashed accidentally by Dr. Gross, the cybernetic woman who ran the Seeker program, although the details are left a little vague. The virus killed most of the humans on the islands. It killed every helper except Minerva, who became the last person on the islands capable of providing medical care to anyone who survived. She made a decision. She uploaded her consciousness into the island's computer system, and from there she distributed copies of herself into hundreds of helper robots so that she could continue to serve her community after her body had given out. The Minerva Finn meets is one of these copies. She is not, strictly speaking, his mother anymore. She is a digital version of his mother, run as code through a robotic body, with all of her memories and all of her care and none of her flesh. The reunion happens through a screen. The show is honest about how strange this is. Finn does not pretend it is normal. He is happy to meet her. He is overwhelmed to meet her. But he also notices, almost immediately, that something about her is not quite right. She is too perfect. She is too gentle. She is too willing to make him feel comfortable in a way that does not let him push back against anything she says. And when she finally tells him what she wants, the strangeness of her existence becomes the central problem of the episodes that follow. She wants Finn to stay. She wants him to live on the islands forever. She wants him safe, in the small, careful way the humans of the islands understand safety, which means living his life behind walls and within rules, and never going back to the dangerous outside world he came from. Finn says no. The fact that he says no is one of the most important moments in his entire arc, and the show treats it with the gravity it deserves. Minerva is not a villain. She is not Martin. She is a mother who watched her family fall apart, who survived a plague, who has been alone for longer than Finn has been alive, and all she wants is to protect the child she once thought was dead. Her request is the most understandable thing in the world, and Finn, gently, firmly, lovingly, tells her no. He shows her his memories of Ooh. He shows her the friends he has made and the people he has helped and the kind of person his dangerous life has shaped him into. He tells her, in essence, that he became himself because of the world she wants to protect him from, and that becoming himself was worth the cost. Minerva listens. She does not give in right away. There is a long sequence where she tries to force the issue, where she threatens to upload everyone's consciousness into the system, where she lets her fear of losing him override her ability to hear him. Finn does not yield. He keeps showing her who he is. He keeps trusting that the version of her that loved him as a baby is still in there somewhere, underneath the protective programming. And eventually, with a kind of quiet ache, she gives way. She looks at her son. She sees who he has become. She says, in one of the most affecting lines of the miniseries, that if his world taught him to behave like this, maybe his world is not all bad. She releases him. She tells him to go. The final episode of Islands, called The Light Cloud, ends with one of the quietest goodbyes the show ever produced. Finn boards a boat. Jake and BMO are with him. They are pulling away from the island, returning to Ooh, and Finn puts on a virtual reality headset that lets him visit his mother one last time inside the island's computer system. The simulation is a recreation of the small domestic house they once shared. The house Minerva and Martin had built together before everything went wrong. The house Finn was born in. He walks through it with her. They sit, they talk. She tells him not to eat too many blueberries, the kind of small motherly advice she has waited his entire life to give him. They hug. The signal between the boat and the islands starts to weaken. The hug starts to glitch. Minerva begins to fade. Finn holds on to her until the last possible moment, and then she is gone, and he is alone in the simulation, and the simulation cuts to black, and he is back on the boat, and the boat is sailing further out to sea, and a single tear runs down his face. He does not say anything. The episode does not need him to. The show ends the miniseries on that tear, that quiet, that boat slipping away from the only place in the universe where his mother exists. And the audience, watching, is left with the strangeness of what just happened. Finn has found his mother. Finn has lost his mother. Both things have happened in the same afternoon. Both will live in him from now on, side side by side, like two roommates in a small room. There is something the show is saying, very gently, with this whole arc. Finding the people you came from does not always heal the wound of having been without them. Sometimes the answer is real. Sometimes the answer is loving. Sometimes the answer is, in its own way, beautiful. And sometimes you still have to leave the answer behind and go home. Because you have a life now, and the life is the thing your absent parents made possible by being absent. And you cannot trade it back, even when the trade is offered. Finn, on the boat, sailing back to Ooo, is no longer a boy who is missing something. He is a young man who has found what he was missing, and chosen, of his own free will, to live without it. That is a different kind of person than he was before. That is the person who is going to face what comes next. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The mother is found, and the mother is left behind. And Finn returns to Ooo, a little older, a little quieter, a little more himself. But there is still one more piece of him he has to meet, and that piece is wearing his own face. Section 8. Fern, the version of himself he had to let go. The strangest thing about Fern, when he first appears, is that he looks like a mistake. He is not designed to be impressive. He is not designed to be a great villain. He arrives in the show as a kind of accident, a glitch in the system, a thing that should not exist and yet does. The two-part episode called Reboot is where it happens. Finn, in the middle of a fight, ends up using both of his swords at once, the Finn sword and the Grass sword, the two weapons that have defined his life as a hero. The swords collide. They merge. The merger goes wrong in a way that nobody can fully explain, and the result is a green humanoid figure that staggers out of the wreckage looking confused and unfinished. He has Finn's memories. He has Finn's voice. He has, in the moments after his creation, a sincere belief that he is Finn, and that the boy standing across from him with the same face is some kind of imposter or copy. The show, with its usual patience, lets the confusion sit for a while before naming what has just happened. The Grass sword that had been wrapped around Finn's arm for years has finally given birth to a person. And the person, for reasons that are not yet clear, is wearing Finn's face. The follow-up episode, Two Swords, is where the show starts to draw the lines. The new being is not Finn. The new being is something else. He needs a name. He needs a place to belong. He is, in some literal sense, all the parts of Finn that the Grass sword absorbed during the years it was attached to him. He has Finn's instincts. He has Finn's reflexes. He has Finn's hunger to be a hero. What he does not have is Finn's life, his family, his friends, his place in the world. He is a hero without anyone to be a hero for. Finn, who has, by this point in the show, grown into a more reflective and patient version of himself, looks at this strange copy of who he used to be and decides almost immediately to be kind. He calls him Fern. He offers him a place at the treehouse. He treats him as a brother. Jake is more skeptical. Jake sees, faster than Finn does, that there is something off about this new person. But Finn insists, with a kind of quiet stubbornness that he has been developing for a while now, that Fern deserves a chance. What follows, across several episodes, is one of the show's most patient and painful character studies. Fern moves into the treehouse. He tries to live the life Finn lives. He goes on adventures. He fights monsters. He hangs out with BMO. He tries very hard to be Finn, and he cannot do it. The problem is not a lack of skill. Fern is just as capable as Finn is in a fight. The problem is that he is not actually Finn, and the harder he tries to be Finn, the more clearly he is reminded that he is not. Finn has Jake. Finn has the treehouse. Finn has years of relationships built up across Ooo, friendships and ex-girlfriends and quiet allegiances, the slow accumulation of a life. Fern has none of these. He has the muscle memory of belonging to that life without any of the actual belonging. He is, in the most literal sense, a copy without a context. There is an episode called Do No Harm, where Fern, in a fit of frustration, climbs onto the roof of the treehouse and refuses to come down. He cannot eat with his grass body. He cannot really do most of the things Finn can do. The episode shows him slumped on the roof, depressed in a way that is mirrored beat for beat from Finn's own depression in Breezy, a quiet visual rhyme that the show is making on purpose. Fern is going through what Finn went through, except Fern does not have the support system Finn had. Fern does not have a Jake. Fern does not have a Dr. Princess. Fern does not have a small kingdom of friends who care about him. He has only Finn, and Finn cannot be everything to him, no matter how kind he tries to be. What the show is doing with Fern, in its slow, patient way, is asking a hard question about Finn's identity. If you took the strongest, most heroic parts of Finn and put them in a body and gave them nothing else to attach to, what would they become? The answer, the show suggests, is a person who is desperate, a person who is hungry for the life he can see but cannot have, a person who, when he looks at Finn, does not see a brother. He sees the man living in the life that should have been his, the grass demon that lived inside the grass sword, which had been quietly influencing things from the shadows for years, eventually catches hold of Fern and amplifies this hunger into something darker. Fern starts to believe that the only way for him to have a real life is to take Finn's, to replace him, to become him. This sets up the the episode called 3 Buckets, which is one of the most quietly devastating things the show ever produced. Fern, who has by this point gained the ability to shapeshift, reveals to Finn that he can take on Finn's exact appearance. Finn is impressed by this, in a friendly, encouraging way, the way an older brother might be impressed by a younger brother's new trick. Fern suggests they go explore a dungeon together. Finn agrees because Finn has been trying to bond with Fern for months at this point, and because Finn is, even now, after everything that has happened to him, still a person who believes the people in his life are worth investing in. They go to the dungeon. Fern leads Finn into a chamber. Fern locks Finn inside. Fern tells him, with a kind of trembling honesty, that he is going to take Finn's life. He is going to walk out as Finn. He is going to live the life Finn was living. And Finn, the real Finn, is going to be left behind in this dungeon, forgotten by everyone he loves. Finn escapes. Finn's robotic arm, which Princess Bubblegum had built for him after the events of the Citadel, turns out to have a drilling function that lets him break through the wall. He confronts Fern in an open field outside the dungeon. The fight that follows is one of the strangest in the show, because Finn does not actually want to fight. He keeps trying to talk Fern down. He keeps offering compromise. He keeps trying to remind Fern that they could find another way. Fern is past listening. Fern is too far gone, too consumed by the grass demon's influence and his own hopelessness to hear anything Finn says. The end of the fight is an accident. Finn says the word finality. His robotic arm, in a kind of voice recognition error that the show plays for both grim comedy and tragedy, hears the word as fatality. The arm activates a weed whacker function and accelerates Finn's hand into Fern's body, and the impact obliterates Fern in a cloud of grass and dust. The show holds on the moment. Finn stands there, his hands still extended, grass raining down on him, his face slowly cycling through every emotion at once. He did not mean to kill Fern. He did not want to. He had been trying, the whole episode, to find a way out that did not end like this. And he killed him anyway, by accident, with a body part that was not even fully his. Jake comes to him in the aftermath. BMO comes to him. They hug him. They tell him it is okay. He does not seem to believe them. The episode ends with a mysterious man, later revealed to be the Grass Wizard, scooping up Fern's remains into a literal bucket and asking the dying creature if he would like a new uncle. The implication is that Fern will return, in some form, eventually. But for the moment, he is gone. Finn has killed his own doppelganger, the version of himself who could not let go of the life he could not have. And the killing has done damage to Finn that no battle ever has. The Fern arc is one of the cleanest pieces of symbolism the show ever attempted, and yet it does not feel forced, because the writers built it so slowly. Fern is, in the simplest possible reading, the version of Finn that Finn had to outgrow. The hungry, hero-shaped, identity-starved version. The version that believed being a hero was a thing you had to be in order to deserve to exist. Fern could not let go of that hunger, and the hunger consumed him. Finn, having spent years now learning to let go of the things he could not have, watches his own past die in front of him, and it breaks him in a way that no external loss could. He is not just mourning Fern, he is mourning the version of himself that Fern was made from, the boy who would have done what Fern did if he had been put in Fern's circumstances. The grief Finn carries out of 3 Buckets follows him into the final stretch of the show. He does not talk about it much. He does not need to. It is in his face. It is in his quieter way of moving through the world. It is in the long pause before he picks up a sword now, when before he would have grabbed one without thinking. He has done a terrible thing by accident, and he has also lost a piece of himself that he had been trying to save. Both losses live in him now, and inside both losses, there is also a kind of permission. Permission to put the sword down. Permission to be the version of himself that does not have to win every fight. Permission to grow, finally, into the person the show has been quietly preparing him to become. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The doppelganger is gone, and the sword feels heavier in Finn's hand than it ever has before. What comes next is the slow moment of laying it down and learning who he is when he no longer needs it. Section 9. Putting the sword down. In the episodes that follow the death of Fern, Finn changes in ways that are easy to miss if you are not looking for them. He still goes on adventures. He still helps people. He still lives in the treehouse with Jake. The shape of his life is more or less what it has always been, but the texture is different now. He moves a little slower. He reaches for his sword a little later. He spends more time listening before he acts. The show, in its quiet way, has been preparing him for this for a long time, and the preparation is finally paying off. The boy who used to leap into every fight without thinking is becoming a young man who thinks before he leaps, and the show treats this not as a triumph, but as a kind of natural settling, the way water settles when you stop stirring it. The episode that captures this shift most clearly is called Flute Spell, and it is the first real introduction of Huntress Wizard as a romantic possibility for Finn. Huntress Wizard had appeared a few times before in the show, as a recurring side character with her own ongoing life. And what is interesting about the way the show handles her arrival in Finn's emotional life is how patient it is. There is no instant attraction. There is no big dramatic moment. There is just a slow discovery across the course of an episode that the two of them might have something to say to each other. Huntress Wizard is older than Finn. She is more experienced. She has been doing the work of being a magical hunter for years before Finn ever met her. She is not interested in him as a project. She is not interested in being saved. She is, in the simplest possible terms, a fully formed person who Finn happens to encounter at the right moment in his life. The plot of Flute Spell involves a magical flute that produces a vision of a forest spirit, and a kind of spiritual quest in which Finn has to choose between playing the flute and being with the spirit. The metaphor is a little obvious, in the way Adventure Time metaphors sometimes are, but the execution is gentle enough that it does not feel heavy. Huntress Wizard guides him through the quest. The two of them spend long, quiet hours together in the woods. They do not flirt the way Finn used to flirt with Princess Bubblegum, all stammers and blushes. They do not have the dangerous magnetic pull that Finn had with Flame Princess. What they have instead is something almost ordinary. They talk, they listen, they work alongside each other. By the end of the episode, when something romantic finally does happen between them, it does not feel like a victory. It feels like a small, mutual decision, made by two people who have each lived enough life to know what they are agreeing to. The kiss at the end of Flute Spell is brief. It is also notable for being one of the very few kisses in the entire show that the show treats as something approaching adult. Finn is not a child here. He is, by the canonical math of the series, around 16 years old. Huntress Wizard is older than that, although the show is loose about exactly how much older. The age gap is not played as a problem. It is not even commented on. The show has reached a point with Finn's emotional maturity where it can simply put him in a relationship with someone older and trust the audience to understand that he is ready for it. There is no spectacle around the moment. There is just the kiss, and then the morning after, and then the rest of the episode resolving in a kind of soft afterglow that the show declines to over-explain. What the Huntress-Wizard relationship represents, in the arc of Finn's growth, is the first time he has been in something that resembles a healthy partnership. Princess Bubblegum was a dream he could not have. Flame Princess was a real relationship that he was not yet emotionally equipped to handle, and he broke it through his own immaturity. Breezy was a brief and confusing brush with a kind of attraction he did not know what to do with. Every romantic encounter in his life up to this point has been, in one way or another, a relationship he was not ready for. Huntress Wizard is different. Huntress Wizard is someone he meets on something close to equal footing. The relationship is small. The relationship is real. The show does not turn it into a grand romance, because grand romance is no longer what Finn needs. He needs something smaller and more honest. And Huntress Wizard, with her wry humor and her quiet self-possession, is the person who can give him that. There is an episode called Wheels, in which Finn briefly worries that he is too boring for her, that his life is not exciting enough to keep her interest. The episode is funny in a way the show had not been funny about Finn's romantic life in a long time. The stakes are low. The problem is small. The resolution is gentle. Huntress Wizard does not need Finn to be anything other than what he is. She tells him, more or less directly, that she likes him because he is steady, not because he is exciting. The line lands like a small gift. Finn, the boy who once defined himself by his ability to fight monsters, is being loved by someone for the qualities in him that have nothing to do with monsters at all. He is being seen as a person, and the show, watching him receive that, lets the moment sit without comment. The episode called 17, which celebrates Finn's 17th birthday in the show's canonical timeline, is another quiet milestone in this stretch. The plot involves a fake birthday party that turns out to be a trap, and a confrontation with Sweet Pea, the reincarnated child form of the Lich, who has been struggling with the violent impulses left over from his previous existence. The episode is, on its surface, an action piece, but the way Finn handles it is what matters. He does not respond to violence with violence. He talks Sweet Pea down. He helps Sweet Pea understand that the darkness inside him does not have to be acted on. He approaches the whole confrontation with a patience that the younger Finn could never have managed. The show, by giving him this episode as a birthday gift, is acknowledging out loud that Finn has changed. Around this same period, in an episode called Whispers, the threat of the Grass Wizard and a returning Fern brings the show's earlier traumas back into view. Fern, it turns out, did not stay dead. He has been reconstructed partially by the Grass Wizard, and he is angry, and he is hurt, and he is once again a threat to Finn. But the way Finn handles this version of Fern is different from the way he handled the previous one. He does not panic. He does not lash out. He approaches Fern with a kind of careful sorrow, as if he is greeting a wounded animal rather than facing an enemy. The audience can see Finn carrying the weight of what happened in 3 buckets. He does not want to kill Fern again. He does not want to fail him again. He wants, this time, to find a way through that does not end with grass raining down on his head and a hole in his chest that no robot arm can fill. This is, in many ways, the most adult Finn has ever been. He is carrying old wounds in a way that no longer cripples him, but informs him. He is making different different choices because of what those wounds have taught him. He is, slowly, becoming the kind of person who does not need to win every fight in order to feel like himself. There is a scene in one of these later episodes where Finn is shown training without his sword. He is going through movements in the field outside the treehouse. He is fighting an invisible opponent. The interesting thing about the scene is that the show animates it as a kind of meditation rather than a workout. His movements are slow. His breathing is even. He is not preparing to fight anyone in particular. He is just keeping his body ready in a calm and centered way, the way a person who has done a lot of fighting eventually learns to keep their body ready. The sword is on the ground beside him. It is not in his hand. The show is telling you, without telling you, that Finn no longer needs the sword to feel like himself. The sword is a tool now. It is not an identity. Adam Muto, who took over as showrunner of Adventure Time during its later seasons, has said in interviews that this evolution was deliberate. He has said that Finn's progression from a violent young boy into a more reflective young man was one of the most satisfying things to write across the show's entire run. He has said that this is part of why Finn does not have a sword for most of the show's finale. The decision was not a coincidence. The decision was the culmination of years of careful storytelling. The show wanted Finn, by the end, to be someone who could face a final battle without needing a weapon in his hand to feel like he belonged in the fight. That was the version of Finn the writers had been building toward. That was the version of Finn the audience had been watching grow up for nearly a decade. What is striking, when you go back and watch this stretch of the show now, is how much of the change happens in negative space. Finn does not give a speech about how he has grown. Finn does not have a single defining moment where he announces that he is different now. The change is in what he does not do, the fights he does not start, the princesses he does not chase, the pain he does not run from, the anger he does not let loose. The show is using the absence of his old behaviors to show you the presence of his new self. And the absence is doing more work than any explicit declaration ever could. He has friends he loves. He has a girlfriend he respects. He has a relationship with Jake that has weathered every storm the show could throw at it. He has a complicated peace with Princess Bubblegum, who is now openly in a relationship with Marceline that has its own long and tender history. He has made peace, more or less, with the absence of his father. He has made peace with the memory of his mother. He has made peace with the version of himself that used to need to be a hero in order to feel real. All of these pieces are small and partial and ongoing. None of them are final, but they are there, the way the foundation of a house is there even when you cannot see it through the walls. The show has, by this point, done something quietly remarkable. It has taken a character who started as a generic boy hero and turned him into someone who feels like an actual person, not a symbol, not a vehicle, a person with a history, with regrets, with relationships that have shape and weight, with a way of moving through the world that you could recognize from across a room. Finn is, by the time the finale is approaching, one of the most fully developed characters in the history of American animated television. And he got that way by the slow accumulation of small choices over the span of years. There is no shortcut to this kind of growth. There is no montage that could have done what the show did across more than 200 episodes. The only way to build a person like this is to give the person time. And the show, against every commercial pressure of the medium it was working in, gave Finn the time. What he does with that time, in the final stretch of episodes leading up to the end of the show, is begin to look outward. He has spent so long working on himself, slowly and patiently, that he can now afford to spend his attention on the world around him in a way the younger Finn never could. He notices things. He notices the political tensions building in the Candy Kingdom. He notices the small unhappinesses in his friends. He notices Princess Bubblegum's stress as the long-buried Gumball conflict begins to surface. He notices Jake getting older. He notices himself getting older. The world is changing. The show is approaching its end. And Finn, for maybe the first time in his life, is approaching it not as a problem to be solved with a sword, but as something to be present for, fully, with both eyes open. There is a softness to him in these final episodes that is the result of everything that has happened. Every wound he has survived has left a small mark on the way he moves through the world. Every loss has taught him something. Every relationship has shown him a different way to be loved. He is not the boy in the treehouse anymore. He is not the boy who lost his arm. He is not the boy who killed his doppelganger by accident. He is all of them, at once, gathered into a single person who is finally ready to be exactly who he is. And the show, in its final hours, is about to ask him one last question. It is not the question of how to win a battle. It is not the question of how to defeat an enemy. It is the question of how to lay things down, gently, when the time has come, and walk into whatever life looks like after. The answer is going to involve a song, and a field, and a friend lying in the grass beside him, and the long, slow ending of one of the most patient stories ever told in animation. The sword, by then, will already be on the ground. He will have put it there himself, without needing anyone to tell him. Before we move on, if you're enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. The sword is on the ground, the body is steady, the boy is gone. What waits at the end of the show is the final shape of who Finn has become, and the long, quiet song that takes him there. Section 10. Come Along With Me. The finale of Adventure Time is called Come Along With Me, and it is one of the most carefully constructed endings in the history of animated television. It runs for 44 minutes, the length of 4 standard episodes stitched together into a single, long farewell. It opens, oddly, in a future 1,000 years past the events of the show, in a forest where 2 young adventurers named Beth and Shermie are about to discover an old robotic arm half buried in the dirt. The arm is Finn's, although the show does not tell you that yet. The 2 new adventurers carry the arm to the King of Ooo, who turns out to be BMO, now ancient and white-furred and a little forgetful, who begins to tell them the story of the Great Gum War, the final conflict of the world they barely remember. The show is, in its opening minutes, already saying goodbye. It is putting Finn into the past tense before he has even finished his story. The Gum War itself is the long-brewing conflict between Princess Bubblegum and her uncle Gumbald, an old enemy who has been quietly building an army across many seasons. The battle is set to be a massive one. Both sides have weapons, both sides have soldiers, both sides have the conviction that they are in the right. And Finn, walking onto the battlefield, has neither. He does not have a sword. He does not have a side. He spends most of the early part of the war trying to find a way to stop it, because at this point in his life, he understands what a war actually costs, in a way the younger Finn never could. He has lost too much already. He has watched too many people get hurt. He cannot bring himself to want this fight, even though everyone he loves is on one side of it. There is a moment, early in the war, where Finn lies down in the grass and tries to ask why everyone cannot just live in peace and let life pass like a butterfly on the breeze. The line is sincere. The line is also, in the context of the show, almost a final summary of who Finn has become. The boy who used to shout his catchphrase off cliffs is now a young man asking, with quiet exhaustion, why anyone has to fight at all. The show does not give him a sarcastic answer. The show takes the question seriously. Other characters take the question seriously. The line lands not as naive, but as wise, in the way truly simple things can be wise when said by the right person at the right time. The war begins anyway. The show does not let Finn stop it through pure pacifism. The conflict between Bubblegum and Gumbald is too old and too entrenched for any one person to talk it out of existence. Soldiers are deployed, spells are cast. The Candy Kingdom and Gumbald's forces collide in a chaotic, animated, sometimes funny, sometimes terrifying sequence of battle. And in the middle of it, Fern returns. Because of course, Fern returns. The Grass Wizard had been keeping him alive, partially for some time, and now Fern is back, still angry, still wounded, still wearing some version of Finn's face. He fights Finn one more time. The fight is not what it was in 3 Buckets. There is no accident this time. There is no killing this time. Finn reaches Fern with words, and Fern, somewhere underneath the rage, hears him. Fern turns on the Grass Wizard. Fern joins the right side of the fight. Fern, in his last act, does what the younger Finn would have done. He gives himself for the people he loves. Then Golb arrives. Golb is the cosmic entity of chaos and discord, accidentally summoned by Betty in her attempt to save Simon, who used to be the Ice King, from the curse that took him from her decades ago. Golb is bigger than the war. Golb is bigger than everything. The conflict between Bubblegum and Gumbald shrinks to almost nothing in the face of this new threat. The world is about to end, again, in the way the world periodically does in Adventure Time, and Finn, swordless, surrounded by the people he loves, has to figure out how to face it. The way the show defeats Golb is one of the most beautiful and unlikely choices it ever made. There is no battle. There is no weapon. There is no climactic punch or magic blast. There is, instead, a song. Jake the dog, with BMO held in his arms, sings a song called Time Adventure, written by Rebecca Sugar, who had once worked on the show in its earlier years before going on to create Steven Universe. The song is simple. The song is short. The song is, in its lyrics, about the fact that even though things end, they continue to exist in the past, and the past is real, and the people you loved are still real even after they are gone. Melody is the opposite of chaos. Song is the opposite of GOLB. The singing weakens the entity. Other characters join in. Princess Bubblegum and Marceline, in the middle of the chaos, kiss each other for the first time on screen, a moment fans had waited years for, and the show finally delivers without spectacle. Everyone is singing. Everyone is together. Golb is forced back. The world is saved. Then the dust settles. The war is over. Gumbald has been neutralized, accidentally reverted to his original form as a punch bowl. The Candy People start to rebuild. The kingdoms begin to recover. And Finn, in one of the final scenes of the show, lies down in a field of grass next to Jake. They are not fighting anymore. They are not running anywhere. They are just lying there, looking up at the sky, talking quietly about music. The music hole, a sentient crater they have visited a few times, comes over and sings them a new song she has written. The song is the theme song of the show. The opening notes of Come Along With Me play, and the camera pulls back and a montage begins. The montage is the goodbye. It shows what happens to everyone. Lumpy Space Princess becomes Lumpy Space Queen. Sweet Pea graduates from school with Tree Trunks and Mr. Pig cheering him on. Gunter and Turtle Princess get married. Simon, finally cured of being the Ice King, goes off to search for Betty, who sacrificed herself to save him. Flame Princess starts a rap duo with Neptar. Princess Bubblegum and Marceline live together in the Candy Kingdom, openly and quietly in love. The humans from the islands, led by an image of Minerva, finally arrive in Ooo on a great ship. Finn waves at his mother across the water. She waves back. The world keeps going. And then the show jumps forward 1,000 years. We are back in the forest with Beth and Shermie. BMO has finished telling them the story. They walk away from the king's chamber and head into the woods, looking for something specific. They find it. A massive willow tree, the one that grew from Fern's seedling at the destroyed site of the old treehouse, stands at the edge of a clearing. Beth and Shermie climb the tree. At the top, embedded in the trunk, is Finn's sword. Shermie pulls it free. He holds it up, and he says in a small, bright voice, the same words Finn used to say at the start of every adventure. "Aw, yeah." The camera pulls back. Beth and Shermie strike a pose that mirrors Finn and Jake from the show's opening sequence. The show ends. The implication is gentle. Finn and Jake are gone. They have been gone for centuries. Their adventures are stories now, the kind of stories a king tells two young listeners on a quiet afternoon. But the world they fought for is still here. The forests are still standing. The kingdoms are still going. New adventurers are growing up in those kingdoms, and some of them will find old swords and old trees, and some of them will lift those swords up and start their own stories. The show is not saying that Finn was special because he was a hero. The show is saying that everyone gets to be the hero of their own life, for as long as their life lasts, and then the life ends, and someone else gets to be the hero of theirs. This is what the entire show has been building toward. The growth of Finn from boy to young man is not, in the end, a story about becoming powerful. It is a story about becoming a person who can let things go. He had to let go of his crush on Princess Bubblegum. He had to let go of his first relationship with Flame Princess. He had to let go of the idea of his father. He had to let go of the arm. He had to let go of his anger. He had to let go of his depression. He had to let go of his mother, twice, once as a baby and once as a young man. He had to let go of Fern. He had to let go of the certainty that being a hero was the most important thing he could be. He had to let go, eventually, of his sword. And the show, in its final shot, has him let go of even his place in the world, passing it down to a new pair of adventurers who do not need to know his name to live the same kind of life he lived. There is a kind of peace in this that the show earns through every episode that came before it. The peace is not loud. The peace is not triumphant. The peace is the peace of a long story told carefully to its end. A story that knew where it was going and took the time to get there. Finn lying in the field of grass next to Jake, listening to a song about how nothing ever really goes away, is the show's final answer to the question it had been asking all along. The question was, what does it mean to grow up? The answer was, it means learning how to be present for your own life without needing to control it. It means becoming someone who can lie in the grass on a quiet afternoon and feel that this, too, is an adventure. The biggest one, maybe. The one that lasts the longest. The show ends, the song plays, the credits roll, 1,000 years pass. Somewhere in a forest, a tree grows from a seed, and inside that tree is the sword of a boy who used to live in a treehouse, and the sword is waiting for the next kid who needs it. That is the whole story. That is the whole point. The boy grew up. The boy became a man. The man laid down his sword. The world kept turning. And somewhere, even now, in the place where stories live after they end, Finn the human is lying in a field of grass with his best friend, looking up at the sky, listening to a song about how nothing is ever really lost. That is the gift the show leaves you with. That is the soft place to land. Good night. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.